Howdy, I'm Peter Reilly. I'm a professor of law at Texas A&M University. So, deferred prosecution is a tool used by the Department of Justice to address corporate misconduct without going to trial. So let me demonstrate how this works by giving you 3 quick scenarios. So the first scenario is one that you would all recognize just by reading the newspaper or watching television. Somebody commits a federal crime. If that happens, you basically have a prosecutor who charges the person, and then the person goes to trial. There's a jury. The jury determines whether the person's guilty or innocent. If the person's guilty, then a judge will go ahead and dispense a sentence or some kind of punishment. So the second scenario is, same scenario, but instead of an individual committing a crime, you've got a company that commits a crime. And let's say that it's some sort of a financial crime, so hundreds or even thousands of people outside of the company are harmed by the criminal misconduct that took place inside the company. Now you'd think that Department of Justice would be able to go inside the company, figure out who committed the crime, and then go ahead and send them to trial and have a jury determine if they're innocent or guilty. But sometimes what the Department of Justice will do is give that company a deferred prosecution. They will simply go to the company and they'll say, we know that there was misconduct, we know that a crime was committed, but instead of having a trial, what we're going to do is you will pay a fine, you will pay additional money to compensate all the victims who are harmed by your crime, and third, you will do internal reforms so that this kind of misconduct never occurs again. So again, instead of going to trial, they'll just give them a deferred prosecution, and if they meet all of those elements of the deferred prosecution, everything goes away. The company goes along its merry way as if nothing happened. Now, consider a third scenario where instead of a financial crime where people were harmed financially, consider a crime where hundreds of people died. For example, the Boeing case, where you had the 737 Boeing MAX airplane crashes where 346 people died. You would think that in a case like this, Department of Justice would hold a trial so that they could figure out exactly who was responsible within the company for the wrongdoing. But that's not what they did. Again, they gave a deferred prosecution. They went to the company and they said, if you pay a large fine, if you give money to the victim families who lost loved ones in the airplane, and if you do internal reforms so that this will never happen again, that's all that will happen to you. So my research really is delving into this larger question of corporate responsibility. And what I try to argue is that if a company crosses that line, if their misconduct ends up killing somebody, then DOJ should not be allowed to offer a deferred prosecution agreement. That is the bright line that should not be crossed. And only Congress can change this. At this point, I've written my research and I'm hoping to influence Congress to pass legislation saying, DOJ, you can use deferred prosecution in these other financial cases or corporate cases if you wish, but if somebody dies, you cannot use deferred prosecution.